Jamal Hill got a new opponent. Khalil Roundtree, going through his red tape, got to serve his 60 days, so Khalil's not going to be able to fight. And what's interesting, quick turnaround for Jamal Hill's opponent. But that's not the story, at least for me. The story is they got the co-main. And why is that relevant? Because that means Ian Garry did not. And that's been kind of the hot topic of the week. Is Ian Garry going to get co-main on Conor? And by the way, from a promotional standpoint, is that wise? Is that going to help to shine Garry and elevate a guy that's got about 10 years left? He's got a massive shelf life in this industry, and we've seen nothing that would stop your belief that this is a future champion. Is that good for him to have all those eyeballs? Or do all of a sudden you start sharing the room? And that's a concept very few get. Very, very few people understand this. So Jamal Hill is going to go into the co-main event, which lets us know we don't have to keep on doing this back and forth. Is Garry going to get on the card? And we've heard every rumor from Colby. I know MVP was rumored. In fact, that was one that Garry himself started. I think we can stop. We're not going to put Garry on the card any lower than co-main event. Now, that sounds right, doesn't it? Everything I just said, does that sound right? The idea of how difficult it is to have two stars at the same time. It's a very fascinating law in promotion, and it doesn't get recognized by many very often. But there's a reason that when you had Stone Cold and The Rock competing at the same time, and they were 1 and 2, and they flipped that back and forth every week, and their merchandise was 1 and 2, and they flipped that back and forth. There was a reason you didn't put Stone Cold and The Rock on the same card unless you were putting Stone Cold against The Rock. And the answer is just the demotion. You ever want to demote a guy? Take his great big star and you go, God, who's bigger? Is The Rock bigger or Stone Cold? Oh, wow, I don't even know who I like more. Wow, these are big. Have a card, have it come out, put one of them as a co-main. There's your answer. Nobody in the world that's on the fence goes, God, I like Stone Cold, I like The Rock, I got to flip a coin. Who do I like more? Nobody goes with the co-main guy. Not if you're on that fence. I'm just sharing with you. Now, obviously, Garry isn't in the position of Conor, but it's still one of these questions. Is it wise to put them on the same card? Is it wise to hold a press conference and have two guys that are two of your only guys that can handle themselves on a stick side by side? Or should you spread out what is otherwise a miserably boring and painful proposition known as a press conference into two that are now at least obtainable? But these are questions you have to ask. The media, I can't tell you how many times they've danced on the UFC's grave. I could not tell you. I remember when they happened. To go way back when Tito said he wasn't going to fight there anymore. There was media that was, they're done. Without Tito, this can't be done. And then Randy Couture, at the same time as, it was just months apart, said so long. And a very big deal, there was a period of years where if there was a pay-per-view, for sure, it was only a matter if Tito was going to headline or if Randy was going to headline it. And they would go, back and forth. And if you didn't have Tito, or you didn't have Randy, you just knew right away you weren't going to have this great night of business. Now, you can fast forward that to Ronda Rousey. And when Ronda decides that she's going to leave, you should have heard the media. Oh, my God, what are we going to do? Oh my God, next year is going to be so hard for the UFC, and they're out there booking venue. I can't believe it. They're going to lose so much money. This sport is going to be done. And it was to the point where these people would actually ask Dana. That's how sincere they were. That's the level of belief that they had. And they're looking in the right direction, right? This is a star-driven business. That's true. And you must have people that other people find interesting. To watch them compete, to hear what they have to say. You do have to have that. The part that the media missed, and the part that the public missed, from the time Tito and Randy said I'm done, to Ronda said I'm not going to do it anymore, to the threats of Conor not continuing to fight, the concept that the media misses is the fans don't diminish. They just go somewhere else. As soon as one of those stars goes away, their fans don't leave the sport with them. Their fans keep watching. They just need someone else to jump on And when that person gets done, the fan doesn't retire with them either. The fan stays. I can just tell you that from my personal perspective. Frank Yeager is my favorite fighter. And Frankie announced when his last fight was going to be. And then he had the fight. And sure enough, Frankie retired. But my days of being a fan don't leave with Frankie. I've just got to find a new guy. I got to find a new guy that then becomes my favorite fighter. So it's one of these concepts that is very difficult. It's very difficult to manage. And the decisions that get made, they're very difficult. And you got to look at everything. In the ultimate microcosm, you want to break everything down to the absolute smallest as you can. Everything. The vote for the presidency, if you could break that down to the national, and then you got the state, and you've got the electoral, but if you could break that down to one person's living room, boom, there's your microcosm. What does that person need to hear? What are the hot topics right now? Which way are you going to vote? Like, you can expand it all the way on out. So when you have a live gate that is already sold out, and you don't have Ian Garry on the card yet, I understand the live gate is just one piece of business, but it is the smallest microcosm that you can narrow things down to. If you want to know how the pay-per-view is going to do, you could do Google searches and algorithms, and you can listen to guys that lie like Dave Meltzer, that they have some kind of an algorithm. You could do all of those things. But if you had the ability to see what your live gate is and to track the trends of live sales, did it bounce? Was it faster? If you could track those trends, there is no way to estimate what your pay-per-view would be that is better than that. There is no analysis. And you'll get plenty of guys that walk in the room and try to confuse you. And you'll even get people that get a corner office and they get hired by the boss because he fell for it. But none of their analysis and none of their algorithms would be more valuable than just having access to that. And the gate was already sold. So why and what evidence would you believe that you need more star power? It's a very reasonable question by me. And it looked as though it might be going in that direction. And even if it wasn't a dollar and cents idea, you also have a long-term play of getting Garry, a future star that looks like he's going to be a champion someday. Got a great big shelf life. And is the smartest guy in the room. Does he see a value in plugging him in there? Or does he see a value in waiting? I just think it's an interesting topic. That's all. I think it's a fascinating concept. In this sport, it's all dominoes. A lot of times we'll be sitting around and go, okay, who's going to get the next title shot? Or who's this guy going to fight next? It's one of these things where we're sitting and then we start debating, we start having a conversation, and it's a whole lot of fun. And that guy that we're debating and arguing about never gets announced. He never gets a fight. He didn't even get a headline. But a different guy does. And so when that guy come off the board, it changes the players and it lets you start to see the future. It lets you start to see what's out there and who's going where. I love that Jamal got this spot. He worked for it. He campaigned for it. Took the big risk at 300. Didn't go his way. Got right back on the horse. They changed his opponent. Like, nothing about this is ideal for Jamal Hill. And in typical Jamal Hill fashion, he never once flinched.